What up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to episode number 119 of Siriani Says Sports all the time. And as you can tell, it's all me all right now. Ryan Burns Jr. and Leroy Antonio both have something going on tonight. So I'm going to be holding the show down solo, which, is no problem at all. I can do this on my own. I've done it before. But I want to give a shout out actually to Leroy Antonio because Leroy actually has a big thing going on right now. He's part of the Valley Sports Telegram. And he also got another job, which I want to give him a shout out for. I'm going to actually figure it out right now. It's another publication that he's a part of. He's part of two sports publications, so I want to give a shout out to him. It's the Back Sports page, where he'll be covering stories on the Los Angeles Chargers, the Los Angeles Lakers, the Los Angeles Rams, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the New England Patriots. So he's got a lot of stuff going on in his life, and I obviously want to give a shout out to Loro. He's killing it right now, and I obviously going to get – and – I have more than enough confidence that Laurel is going to hold it down. But the show must go on, as always. I'm Matt Siriani. So, here we go. We got a lot of stuff going on. We're just going to go through the NFL games from this past weekend. We're going to go through the Seahawks and 49ers. We're going to go through the Chargers and Jaguars. We're going to go through the Dolphins and Bills, Giants and Vikings, Ravens, Bengals, and then the Cowboys and Bucks. So, and then we're also going to go through the bracket challenge that's going on right now, which is the NFL Playoff Bracket Challenge, which is not really going too well for all of us. I mean, we weren't perfect, I'll tell you that in the first round. And then I'll tell you what the blunders that I had and also the blunders that Ryan Jr. had, because Ryan Jr. was not perfect, but he had a big mistake. But so did I. And then we'll do picks based on the spread, and that should be the show. But before we go on to do the show today, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors, as always. Siriani Says Sports is sponsored by the following. Outback Steakhouse in Milltown, Aussie Rules. Valix Enterprises, building projects for success. DAS Technology Consulting, simplifying technology. Jag One Physical Therapy, official therapy provider for the teams you love. Grace Foundation of New York, support, empower, educate, enhance. The Integrated Planning Group, client-focused, advice-driven. And Rocco's Original Italian Ices, a sweet summertime treat all year round. So, with that being said, let's get right into the playoff games that happened this past week. How's everyone doing, by the way? I know it's just me right now. Nothing bad happened, but that's how it goes when there's conflicts involved. But like I said, the show must go on. So we're going to go right into the Niners and the Seahawks right now. So it was a competitive first half. It was 17-16 at the half. Geno Smith trying to do his best to hold his own and keep the Seahawks afloat. They were heavy underdogs in this one. It was 17-16 at the half, but then the 49ers made some adjustments at the half, and then Brock Purdy just looked dominant. Like, he looked phenomenal. He threw for 332 yards, completing 18 of 30 passes, threw 3 touchdowns, ran for another. Deebo Samuel had 133 yards receiving, and Christian McCaffrey had 119 yards rushing on just 15 carries, and the final score was 41-23. So if I had to go through the thoughts on this game, it's just simple as this. Brock Purdy is just phenomenal. This is like the next Tom Brady, almost, because he was Mr. Irrelevant in this year's draft. No one thought he could do anything. He was going to be the third-string quarterback, and no one had any expectations for him. But then, boom, Trey Lance goes down. Boom, Jimmy Garoppolo goes down. And then this kid takes advantage of the time he was given. And it's kind of amazing because when you're Mr. Irrelevant, really usually don't get the chance like this. And when they do, they don't really play this well. So this is giving me confidence that maybe Brock Purdy could be the starter going forward in San Francisco. Because if Jimmy Garoppolo is going to get traded at the end of the season, or if he's not going to be on the team anymore, Brock Purdy's going to be the guy. Because I've seen Trey Lance in small sample sizes, and he's not that good. So you got to go with the hot hand. And the hot hand is the Mr. Relevant from Iowa State. Pick number 262. Now, if you remember Tom Brady, this is similar to Tom Brady, but not really too similar. So, in 2000, obviously, you all know the story. Tom Brady was drafted 199th overall. He was, skinny kid, didn't really have a lot of muscle definition, ran a 5.2 40-yard dash, didn't really have the mechanics according to scouts. And then he was on the bench. He was on this bench. Drew Bledsoe was the guy in New England. But then when Bledsoe got hit in that Jets game back in 2001, second week of the season, Brady came in and just ran with the starting job, took it from Bledsoe underneath his feet. And then the rest is history. The legend was made from there. But Brock Purdy looks phenomenal. So he's got a tough task coming up next week in the divisional round. But the Niners have home field advantage in this next game that they play. It's going to be against the Dallas Cowboys. I'll explain what happened in Tampa last night. But just a spoiler, it's San Francisco 49ers versus the Dallas Cowboys in Levi Stadium. Should be a competitive one, but we'll have to see. This next game kind of surprised me. So it was the Los Angeles Chargers versus the Jacksonville Jaguars in TIAA Bank Stadium. It looked like they were going to go the Chargers' way the whole way through. Trevor Lawrence threw 4 first-half interceptions. Then they had 5 total turnovers. Jacksonville and the Chargers had 27-0 lead most of the way through almost finished through the second quarter. So it was like a trouncing almost. But the Chargers didn't really take advantage of possessions where they need to. They kicked a lot of field goals, and they didn't really capitalize on drives, and they didn't really blow out the Jacksonville Jaguars when they need to early on. So it could have been 35-0. Instead, it was 27-0, which is not really the biggest lead. I mean, if it was 35-0, maybe the Chargers would have lost some dignity, but the Jaguars would have lost some dignity. But at the end, the Jaguars came back. Trevor Lawrence threw a touchdown right before the end of the first half, and that kind of gave them a little bit of mojo because then from there, the Jaguars kind of took over, and it was like a complete 180 from what was going on. The Chargers had 3 second half points, and then the Jaguars went with a game-winning field goal with 3 seconds left to go in the fourth quarter. 31-30 was the final. And thoughts on this game is as simple as this. I'm shocked that Brandon Staley has a job right now. I'm really, really surprised because first off, he didn't rest his starters in Week 18 because the Chargers were going to go up or down on the seedings before the Week 18 game against the Broncos. So then when Mike Williams goes down, one of your best receivers, it hurts your mojo a little bit. And like if they had Mike Williams, the Chargers offense would have been more prolific if they had Mike Williams, and they probably would have blown out the Jaguars even more, and they would have kept their foot on the gas. And as far as the Jacksonville Jaguars go, like they were fully healthy, but they didn't look good. Trevor Lawrence didn't look good in the first half, but he battled back after throwing 4 picks. He threw 4 touchdown passes, and he was unstoppable for most of the game, for most of the second half. Ultimately, Brandon Staley got to stay because if you don't know, the Chargers fired their offensive coordinator Joe Lombardi and their quarterbacks coach Shane Day for a lackluster second half in the playoff game against the Jaguars in Duval County. So, in doing this, you essentially give Brandon Staley one more chance. But if he has another set of blunders in 2023, it's going to be ugly in Los Angeles. So this effectively puts the Los Angeles Chargers out of the Sean Payton sweepstakes because if you're going to keep Brandon Staley apparently from what I hear, Jim Kelly, who's one of the managers at Outback Steakhouse, I got to give a shout out to Jim. He told me something that I was kind of shocked about. He said the players in Los Angeles were going to bat for Brandon Staley. And the players in the locker room love Brandon Staley, and they don't want him to leave. That's shocking to me because when a guy messes up this much, you don't really expect him to have that kind of popularity in the locker room. But if Justin Herbert likes him, if Austin Eckler likes him, and all the leaders in the Los Angeles Chargers players like him, then by all means you can keep him. But like I said, it's not going to be easy the second time around, third season. You know, last year he made a lot of mistakes. This year he made a lot of mistakes. The playoff game he did not coach well, and I'm shocked that the Chargers just gave him one more chance. The Spanos family gave him one more chance because they see the players going to bat, and they're like, well, we don't want to disappoint the players, so what else can we do? Give the guy one more chance. But this is it. If the Chargers start slow next year, or if he makes a lot of mistakes that cost him a playoff berth or a playoff game, you're fired. So that's really the whole problem. And, you know, Chargers had a good season, but we got to see Justin Herbert's playoff debut, and he didn't look too bad, but this game could have been coached much better. And it's just amazing. And this is, by the way, the 3rd largest comeback in NFL playoff history. The first being the comeback between the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Oilers at the time. Back in 1992, that was a 32-point deficit. It was 35-3. Then it was 35-7 Chiefs over the Colts in a 2013 wildcard playoff game. And now there's this. This is 3rd. But this is the 4th largest comeback in NFL history because you had the Viking-Colt game earlier in the year. Then you had the Bills-Oilers game. Then you had the Chiefs-Colts game. And then this. So that's history for you. And it just shows you that it ain't over till it's over, as the great As a great, I'm trying to think, Yogi Berra once said that. Yeah, Yogi Berra said, it ain't over till it's over. So that's why you got to keep your foot on the gas pedal and not assume that the game is over. All right, next up we have the Sunday game. We're going to Dolphins-Bills. This is a game that was projected to be a blowout. The Dolphins were 14-point underdogs. They didn't have Tua Tagovailoa or Raheem Mostert. It was going to be a blowout game, and a lot of people thought that they were going to tune into this. Bills Mafia was going crazy thinking that they were going to see Josh Allen put on a masterclass performance like he did in the divisional round of last year's playoffs. That did not happen. Exactly. It was actually 34-31 was the final, and Josh Allen had 3 turnovers. He fumbled once, and he threw 2 interceptions between the second and third quarter. But then Buffalo put their foot on the gas pedal. They figured things out, and they thought, we're better than this team. We can't lose to the Miami Dolphins in the condition that they're in right now. So, ultimately, it was not. So, it was just shocking, to say the least. I mean, hats off to Miami. They put up a good fight, but it was a bad play call on 4th down by Mike McDaniel late in the game that cost the Miami Dolphins the ball game, and ultimately, the Dolphins ended up going home. So, 34-31 was the final. I expected so much more from the Buffalo Bills in this game. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because this is a team that if you want to be a Super Bowl champion and if you want to make a statement to the rest of the AFC that you're going to be a top dog in this conference, you got to blow out the teams that are in front of you, especially the Miami Dolphins with a third-string quarterback. But that really wasn't the case. It was more so like we're going to play to the best of our ability and play to win the game. They kind of played down to the level of their competition a little bit. And it was a little bit disappointing. But, they won, they moved on, and that's what all that matters at that point. Now we're going to get into my favorite game. I'm wearing my Giants jersey for a reason, folks. So the New York Giants went to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. It was a competitive game throughout. Daniel Jones' first playoff game, Saquon Barkley's first playoff game was a battle between 2 rookie head coaches in Kevin O'Connell of the Minnesota Vikings and Brian Dable of the New York Giants. And this was a blow-for-blow exchange. Like, this was a really competitive game. Like, Justin Jefferson got going in the first drive of the game for Minnesota. They got a touchdown on the first drive, Minnesota. But then the Giants, on their first possession, they scored on a Saquon Barkley touchdown that was 29 yards long. But Daniel Jones was the main story of this game because it was his playoff debut. It was his 4th year in the league, and he looked awesome, to say the least. Like, he looked awesome. Like, he completed 24 of 35 passes, threw for 301 yards, 2 touchdowns, ran for 78 yards. Very efficient. Didn't make a lot of mistakes. Didn't turn the football over, which is a big thing because I don't know if you guys remember. One of the problems with Daniel Jones in the first 3 years of his tenure was that he turned the football over a lot. But he cleaned up the turnovers thanks to Brian Dable, and he looked great in this first playoff game. Like, he utilized his athleticism and his scrambling ability along with a good arm because Daniel Jones does have a good arm, and he's a smart passer. And one of the things I said on last week's show, if you don't remember last week's show, you should check that out because that was something else. Because I went crazy on last week's show saying if you can hold Justin Jefferson in check, you could win this game. And what did the Giants do? They game planned it. First drive, Justin Jefferson goes off. Okay, well, now we know what we're going to do. We're going to make some adjustments. Justin Jefferson only had 47 yards receiving in this entire game. 47 yards on 7 catches. After the first drive, he was neutralized. He couldn't do anything. So, the Giants listened to me, and they also pressured Kirk Cousins a lot. Dexter Lawrence was in his face. Was in Kirk Cousins' face a lot. And it felt good. Late in the game, though, I have my concerns. Because on the Giants' last offensive possession before they kneeled down, Darius Slayton dropped an easy first down pass. Daniel Jones had a pass that was right in his hands, and he was going to take it and try for the first down. That would have probably iced the game. But he drops the pass. He was looking to run without securing the ball. And that's something that you cannot do as a receiver. Thankfully, it didn't cost the Giants anything because after they punted it back to Minnesota with them being up 31-24, the Giants' defense held up. The Dexter Lawrence roughing the passer penalty was BS. I don't even want to get into it. But Kirk Cousins on the 4th and 8th play, they were around midfield, and they ultimately fell short of a first down because Kirk Cousins threw short to T.J. Hawkinson, who was like 5 yards short of a first down. I don't get that. Take a shot downfield if you're going to go for the fourth down. You got to take a shot downfield and get the first down, move the chains, keep the drive going. So I don't understand what the play call was. That play call was really weird, but that just goes to show you what Kirk Cousins does in big time situations. He panics and he chokes in big time moments. It's not just a Monday night thing. It's not just a Sunday night thing. It's a Kirk Cousins thing. In big games, he does not perform well. The one playoff win he has was against the Saints in 2019. That's it. And I think the Vikings are giving a lot of guaranteed money to this guy, and he hasn't won big games. And it's kind of shocking because I had a lot of promise in Kirk Cousins. When he was in Washington, he looked really good, but ultimately it's been disappointing for Viking fans to deal with. He's kind of a tease. He's a tease because he'll do well in the regular season. I mean, he'll win you 13 games, 12 games, whatever. But when he goes in the playoffs, he's a shell of himself. And it's shocking because the Vikings have so much talent. They have Jefferson. They have Thielen. They have Hawkinson from the trade deadline this year. They have Dalvin Cook. They have a lot of weapons that they can utilize. They have a pretty good offensive line. They have a good defense. But they just can't put it together. The Vikings are just a snake-bit franchise. They haven't won anything in their history. And they haven't been in the Super Bowl since 1976. It's been a long time since they've been relevant. But their misery continues because they don't move on. And I had the Giants in my bracket winning this game. People who thought I was crazy. Guess who's the smart man now? Guess who's the Einstein? Who's Bill Nye the Science Guy in football? This dude. So that's one of the things I got to tell you. Like, if those of you who doubted the Giants, like Ryan Jr., you're wrong. You're just a hater. And I want to give a shout out to Big D because he bet the Vikings in this like a freaking fool, thinking that, there's something about the Minnesota Vikings, thinking that they're at home, they're good, they're a good team. Kirk Cousins 13, he's due for a big playoff win. Nope. Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes proved it. I'll get into the other guy. So now the Giants are the lowest seed in the NFC. They won, the Seahawks lost. So why does that matter? Because now the Giants are the lowest seed in the NFC. They got to play the best team in the NFC by seed, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles, their division rival. 1 versus 6. Juicy game. I'll get into it later. But thank goodness for the Giants pulling it out and keeping themselves alive. And by the way, give Brian Dable Coach of the Year. He turned Daniel Jones around. He turned Saquon Barkley around. He saved the Giants from being laughingstocks. And you got to remember, at the beginning of the year, people were picking the Giants to finish in last place in the NFC East and be irrelevant again. What does Brian Dable do? First thing he does, change a culture. I knew from game 1 that Brian Dable had something special because he was from the New England side. He worked under Belichick. He worked under Saban. So he knows what it's like to work under great coaching. And he molded himself to a great coach. He molded Josh Allen into a stud. And he made Daniel Jones so much better than he was originally the first 3 years of his career. So now Daniel Jones is a competent quarterback. Is he a top 10 quarterback? No, he's not. But he's certainly much better than people give Daniel Jones credit for. So this is a great thing. I'm a happy Giants fan. I probably won't be next week because they're playing Philadelphia, and Philadelphia is just a completely different animal from Minnesota. I thought about going to Philadelphia, actually, but believe me, if I went to Philly, I probably wouldn't make it out alive because Philadelphia is just not the most... They call it the city of brotherly love. There's nothing brotherly about Philadelphia. It's a dirty, dangerous city. And you got to be careful when you're there or when you're in any other city that's a big name. But I've been to Philadelphia. It's not the most pleasant place to be in. And the fans are crazy for any sport. Whether it's baseball, football, basketball, hockey. Yeah, Flyer fans are off the chain. Like, they're nuts. But thank God the Giants are going into a hostile environment. They don't have to travel far. They get to go back to the East Coast and in Jersey and practice, and then they have to go to I-95 to play a football game. So thank God it's not a big hassle to travel. Now, if they were going to like Candlestick Park, or no, not Candlestick Park, if they were going to Levi Stadium in San Francisco to play the Niners and the Seahawks, well, they can't do that because of the Seahawks. You know what I'm saying. It's not as big of travel. So the Giants advance. Thank God. I'm a happy man. Next up, we got to get into another game that was supposed to be a blowout, but not a blowout at all. It was the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cincinnati Bengals with Tyler Huntley at quarterback. The Ravens, I think, were a 9-point underdog or something crazy. It was a big line. Tyler Huntley outplayed Joe Burrow. He threw for 226 yards. Joe Burrow threw for 209. Baltimore outgained Cincy 364 total yards to 234 total yards. But the big play of the game came in the fourth quarter. Tyler Huntley was going for a quarterback sneak. He was going to reach the ball over the goal line. Someone swatted Logan Wilson, the linebacker for the Bengals, just swatted the ball out of Huntley's hands. Sam Hubbard, the defensive end, took it in stride, 98 yards for a touchdown the other way. And that put the Bengals up 24-17. And what that did, it took all the momentum out of the Baltimore Ravens because they were driving and they made the game interesting and they were looking like they were going to shock the world and beat the Bengals, who were the defending AFC champions. But that defensive score really took the wind out of the sails of the Baltimore Ravens fans. So that really hurt them. But the Ravens move on back home. And now there's questions because I don't know if you heard, Lamar Jackson didn't show up to the playoff game to be on the sideline and support the team, because if you're going to be a good player and a good teammate, you do things like this where you go to your team's playoff games and you stay on the sideline whether you can play or not, just to support your team and give them confidence and give them some support. But you didn't do that because you ultimately have a little bit of ego, I would say. And ultimately, I wouldn't give Lamar Jackson the money, me personally, because if you're not going to show up to teams' playoff games, whether you're injured or not, it just shows you that you really aren't a team player. Now, I've heard rumors that Lamar Jackson could be done in Baltimore, and he could end up in like Atlanta if he's traded, or he could be a free agent. And I think a lot of teams would like to sign Lamar because he's one of the top quarterbacks in the AFC. I like one of the top 8 quarterbacks in the AFC, so one of the top half quarterbacks in that conference, which is one of the better conferences in the NFL. But ultimately, this was a game that the Ravens came close. Tyler Huntley threw a Hail Mary pass on 4th down or 3rd down, and it fell incomplete. It was deflected by a Bengal defender, and a Raven player almost caught it in the end zone. It was close. But Cincinnati moves on. They play the Bills in the divisional round. 2 teams that were supposed to blow out their respective opponents face each other, and they're clearly flaws for both teams if you saw those games. Now we're going to get into the game that really, really disgusted me. Tom Brady and the Buccaneers versus Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys. These 2 teams both, they're a reason why I don't like them. Now, obviously, you know I'm a Giants fan. I hate the Cowboys for many reasons, not just because I'm a Giants fan. And there's more to the story that I could tell you about why I hate the Cowboys, but I'm not going to get into that. Anyway, both teams went 3-and-out on their first 2 possessions each. It was a very slow start to the game, but then Dallas, once they got in control, once Dak Prescott had a rhythm, it was like there was no chance that Tampa Bay would recover. Tom Brady looked bad. Tom Brady looked really, really bad and really out of sync. And if you go to the stats here, I mean, Tom Brady threw for 351 yards and he threw 66 passes, but he just did not look well. He was missing some wide open receivers. He underthrew a lot of receivers. He got pressured a lot. He didn't know how to handle it. He tried to make plays with his legs. He threw a red zone interception for the first time in his playoff career. It was not pretty. And ultimately, there were some drop passes too from Mike Evans, from Chris Godwin, from Cade Otton, and what really stunk for the Buccaneers was that at the end of the game, Russell Gage suffered a concussion and a neck injury, and he had to be carted out of Raymond James Stadium. But I'm going to tell you Dak Prescott's stats because he was pretty much perfect. So Dak Prescott's first 3 passes were dropped. After that, he went 25 for 30 for 305 yards, 4 touchdown passes, and ran for a score himself. He was sharp, to say the least. Like, he was really sharp. And there's no way, like, you can say that Dak wasn't motivated for this game. Like, he was absolutely motivated for this game. The Cowboys were trying to win a road playoff game for the first time in 3 decades. And they did that in pretty dominant fashion, too. 31-14 was the final, but if there's one Cowboy who did not look good, it was their kicker, Brett Maher. He missed 4 extra points, which I've never seen before. He was 1 for 5 in extra point attempts. The Cowboys shouldn't have attempted a field goal. They didn't attempt a field goal because Brett Maher just looked completely out of sorts. Despite that, they didn't need to worry about missed PATs because they were up big. It didn't really matter at that point. Now, like I said, the Cowboys win their first playoff game since 1992. That was the 1992 NFC Championship game at Candlestick Park when they faced the 49ers. That would be the first of 3 consecutive NFC Championship games that we would see San Fran versus Dallas. And the funny thing is, Dallas and San Fran are facing each other this weekend in the wild card game, in the divisional round, excuse me. So we're going to get Dak and the Cowboys versus Brock Purdy and the 49ers in the divisional round on the NFC side. Also on the NFC side, like I mentioned before, Giants-Eagles, big-time rivalry. And then on the AFC side, we got the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then also on the AFC side, as mentioned before, we had the Buffalo Bills taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. So, all that to unpack. Pretty good wild card weekend, not going to lie. Or super wild card weekend. But now the Eagles and Chiefs are going to be in action this week. Also, did we see the loss of the GOAT, which is Tom Brady? Maybe. Because he did not look great. And I don't know if he has the arm strength or the will to play again. He went through so much in the offseason. Obviously, the divorce and what's going on outside of football. Like, there's just a lot of stuff going on for Tom Brady. And I just can't see him, continuing on at 46 years old to play for another season, even with another team. Like, I hear rumors that he might go to the Raiders or Miami or whatever. Like, I just don't see it. I think Brady's done. He ends on a bad note. Like, he had his first losing season this year, and he ends in a drumming of a playoff loss. But at some point, like, you gotta swallow your pride and say, you know what, it's time. But I saw a piece on ESPN. It was by Steve Young, and Steve Young mentioned how quarterbacks get emotional when they retire after long careers, especially when the Super Bowl winning quarterbacks. But I heard that Steve Young said in his piece, he said something along the lines of how Tom Brady doesn't want to accept that Father Time finally caught up. He just wants to keep proving doubters wrong, which I respect. But at some point, enough is enough. And I think Tom Brady really he has nothing left to prove. I mean, he should have retired 2 years ago after the Bucs won the Super Bowl in 2021. Like, he should have retired then. But his ego got in the way, I guess. And here he is, the big mystery. All right, so with all that in mind, let's go into the bracket review, and we're going to give you the results of how everyone did. So we're going to start off with the leader of the bracket challenge. That's Loro. He had the Seahawks he had the Seahawks losing to the San Francisco 49ers. He did that, so he got that right. He had the Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Los Angeles Chargers. Ryan and I did not, so Loro got points for that. He had the Buffalo Bills beating the Miami Dolphins. Close, but he still got it. He had the New York Giants upsetting the Minnesota Vikings. He got that. And he had the Cincinnati Bengals beating the Baltimore Ravens. He got that too. The only game he did not get right was the Bucs and Cowboys. He had Tampa Bay advancing to the next round in the divisional round and taking on the 49ers. That did not happen, so unfortunately, Loro is not perfect in this bracket challenge. He did get 5 points, and also fortunately for him, he will not lose points in the second round. So here's how this is going to work in this bracket challenge. If you have a certain team going more than one round, you're going to lose more points. So, for instance, let's say, Loro had, I don't know, the Minnesota Vikings going to the NFC Championship game. Spoiler alert, someone had that. Then he would lose 2 points for that because he had the Minnesota Vikings moving on to another round past the divisional series. But Loro did not have that. Ryan Jr. had the Minnesota Vikings going to the NFC Championship game. So when we do the bracket challenge and we look at the bracket, Ryan's going to lose 2 points on the San Francisco 49ers and Dallas Cowboy game because the Minnesota Vikings are not going to be part of that. He also had the Buccaneers advancing to the wild card to the divisional round as well. So he had a chalk line for the NFC side. He had one versus 4 and 2 versus 3, but 4 and 3 didn't make it. So he loses points for the San Francisco-Dallas game, but he's not going to lose points for the Philly game between the Giants if the Giants lose. If the Giants win, now he'll lose points for that, and then his bracket's pretty much busted because he has the Eagles making it to the Super Bowl. So he loses a lot of points if the Eagles got upset by Dallas or by the Giants. But he would not lose points if the Eagles win because he had the Eagles advancing past the divisional round anyway, if that makes any sense. So that's that. So Loro got 5 points. I got 4 points. I came in second. I was right about the 49ers. I was wrong about the Chargers. I had the Chargers beating the Jaguars. I was wrong about that. I had the Buffalo Bills beating the Miami Dolphins. I was right about that. I was right about the Giants. Going with my gut, I was right. I was right about the Giants beating the Minnesota Vikings, so I got that right. And I was also right about the Cincinnati Bengals beating the Baltimore Ravens. Barely, I was right. And I was wrong about Tampa Bay beating the Dallas Cowboys. So I was wrong about that. And what's also going to sting my bracket a little bit more is the fact that I had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers make it to the NFC Championship game. I had them going into San Francisco and beating the 49ers and then playing in Philly. But that's not going to happen because the Dallas Cowboys won. So I'm going to lose points for the divisional round because I had Tampa Bay advancing past San Francisco. So the Dallas Cowboys could win, and it wouldn't really matter. I'd still lose 2 points. And then we're going to go to last place at the moment. That's Ryan Jr. Ryan Jr. got 3 games right out of 6. He was right about the 49ers. He was wrong about the Chargers. He was right about Buffalo. He was wrong about Minnesota. He had the Vikings going to the NFC Championship game and beating the Giants in the wildcard round. So, Ryan, not a good choice, pal. Not a good choice. And he was right about the Cincinnati Bengals, but he was wrong about Tampa Bay. So, he's 3 for 6. I'm 4 for 6. Loro's 5 for 6. Loro's the only person of the 3 of us that did not have any of the losing teams going past the divisional round. So that's good for Loro. He's not going to lose points for that if his respective teams win. So here's what we have in the bracket so far. Loro has the 49ers and Eagles in the NFC Championship game, and he has the Jaguars upsetting the Chiefs, taking on the Buffalo Bills in Orchard Park. That's Loro's bracket. Ryan's bracket, he had the Vikings taking on the Eagles in the NFC side. That's obviously not going to happen. And he has the Buffalo Bills taking on the Kansas City Chiefs in a neutral site. So he has chalk lines. On the AFC side, on the NFC side, he had the Vikings going to Philadelphia. And then my bracket, I had Tampa Bay beating San Francisco, and I had the Philadelphia Eagles beating the New York Giants. And I also had the Kansas City Chiefs and Cincinnati Bengals. I had the Bengals going to the AFC Championship game to face the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, I don't know if that would be in a neutral site situation, but I still think the Cincinnati Bengals would come out on top. So I had the Eagles and Bengals in the Super Bowl. But on the NFC side, I have Tampa Bay going to the NFC Championship game in Philadelphia. That's not going to happen because Tampa Bay's out. So this San Francisco-Dallas game doesn't matter for my bracket. The San Francisco-Dallas game doesn't matter for Ryan's bracket. All that really matters at this point is the Philadelphia game, the Kansas City game, because I can get points for Kansas City winning, and I can get points for Cincinnati beating Buffalo. So those 3 games matter. Cincinnati versus Buffalo, Kansas City versus the Jaguars, and Philadelphia versus the Giants. Those 3 games matter. I'm going to get points for those if my predictions are correct. I will not get points for Dallas Cowboys versus San Francisco 49ers. And neither will Ryan. So now to wrap that up. Okay. So now to close the show. It's now time for picks based on the spread. And this is the first time we're doing it. And the reason why we're doing this picks based on the spread is because, simply put, brackets were busted a little bit. So we're going to try to make up for it and try to win some cash. We're going to start off with the Saturday games. So we're going to start off with the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs minus 8.5. Easy pick for me. I know Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars are hot, but I like the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, and I got to take the Chiefs minus 8.5. I think they cover easily. I think it's like a 10-point game. So I'm going to take Chiefs minus 8.5 here. Also, we have my New York Giants taking on the Philadelphia Eagles in Lincoln Financial Field. Eagles minus 7.5. Now, if you remember the 2 times the Giants played the Eagles, there were mixed results. Not split, but the Eagles blew out the Giants in MetLife by 26, 48-22 in Week 14. And then in Week 18, the Giants rested their starters, and they still lost by 6 in Lincoln Financial Field. So, you would think that the Giants have a chance to win this game because of the trend going on. That they lost, they got blew out the first encounter, they barely lost the second encounter, and now the third time they face the Philadelphia Eagles, you'd figure that maybe they have a chance to win. I'm a big time Giants fan. I love my big blue wrecking crew, but I gotta tell you, the Philadelphia Eagles are just too good. I gotta go with the Eagles here, and I'm gonna take the 7.5. I'm gonna take minus 7.5. It's probably going to be another 14-point game, something like that. Then we go to the Sunday games. At 3 o'clock p.m. on Sunday, we have the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Buffalo Bills. Bills minus 4.5. This is a really competitive game between 2 teams that are somewhat flawed. And unfortunately, I have the Bengals winning this one, so I'm going to take the Bengals plus 4.5. I'm going to stick to my guns with the bracket. I'm going to take the Bengals plus 4.5. And I hope they cover. And last but not least, we got the Dallas Cowboys at the San Francisco 49ers. The 49ers favored by 3.5. This game doesn't really matter bracket-wise, but tough one. I like the quarterback matchup a lot. I like Brock Purdy versus Dak Prescott. But you know what? I'm going to say that the Cowboys upset. I hate to say it. But the Cowboys just proved that they're no joking. They're not going to mess around this year. So I got the Dallas Cowboys plus 3.5. But I think it'll be close. All right. So to recap, I got the Eagles minus 7.5. I got the Chiefs minus 8.5. I got the Bengals plus 4.5. I got the Cowboys plus 3.5. So I got the favorites on Saturday, and I got the underdogs on Sunday. So this was a really short show. I know it's under the hour time that usually is, but obviously no Ryan, no Loro makes things a little bit shorter. But thank you all for whoever tuned in. I really appreciate your support. Thank you so much. And if you want to follow me on social media or follow Siriani Says Sports on social media, go to follow me. Instagram at Siriani Says Sports, Facebook at Siriani Says Sports, YouTube at Siriani Says Sports, Twitter I'm trying to work on. It got hacked. A whole situation that I really don't want to get into. But anyways, I'm Matt Siriani. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to tonight's episode. I know I was a little bit short-handed, but I appreciate your support. Take care. Have a good night. And, of course, peace out. Have a good night, everybody.